Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Talking Real Estate with Champions Real Estate Team here at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Ambassador Real Estate Company. My name is Mark Wehner II, team leader here. Joining me today is Russ Williams with Williams Mortgage. We jump on every Wednesday, kind of give you a rundown what's going on in the real estate market over the last 7 days, kind of keep you in tune with the pulse on the market. We also like to do a quick tip. Quick tip today we were talking about is home pre-inspection. So basically what that means is getting ready to list your house. Before you do that, you kind of get a pre-inspection. So basically, you're doing a home inspection on your home, so that you as the seller have a good understanding of what you know, what you don't know, with regards to your home. And so some people are like, well, why would I want to do that? And then I'd have to disclose anything that I find on that home inspection, But the other thing is that now you do know what's going on in your home, because more than likely in our market right now that we have, a little bit more inventory than we did, in the summer, and as well as a smaller buyer pool, but we have more listings. So you want to stand out sometimes with those particular buyers and know that, hey, when I write an offer on this house, there's going to be no surprises, for that buyer. But then for you as the seller, you also have that peace of mind that there's no surprises, that, hey, we're going to negotiate this contract, we're going to get the sales price, and then we're going to have a 14-day, due diligence period, basically inspection period. And then, oh my goodness, I'm going to cross my fingers that nothing shows up on this home inspection that we have to renegotiate. And then all of a sudden something shows up, and then you have to renegotiate that, in that contract, whether it's price, credit, get those repairs done. And then you're within a timeline that, let's say it's a 45-day closing, 30-day closing. You got to find a contractor that's, ready, willing, and able to do those repairs. And sometimes if it's, on a short notice, maybe they charge you a little bit more. So where that pre-inspection comes into play from a seller's perspective is it allows you to understand, and you don't know what you don't know until you know it, essentially. And so now you're at that, I know what's wrong at the house. You can get those repairs done, and made with that, with your timeline rather than the closing timeline. And then that instead of a buyer going, well, this is going to cost, $5,000 and it may only cost $2,500, something like that, where those buyers tend to inflate those prices a little bit. Or if you're having to escrow money to basically get those repairs done after closing, then you're escrowing 1.5 times the repair, and then you have to get those done. Then you basically got to get the money. So there's just a lot of little, trivial things that you got to deal with in that process. So sometimes just doing that pre-inspection is a good way to know exactly what you're dealing with. You can get those done on your timeline from the seller's perspective, and then that buyer has a peace of mind if they know what's going on, what's been on that inspection. And you just full disclosure. Hey, here's what we got, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer and seller. And maybe there's some things that you aren't going to do, you still have to disclose them, but then basically you can price that home accordingly based off of some of those repairs that may need to be made. So it's just deferred maintenance. I've had clients that, hey, Mark, I know the deck is shot, it's got peeling boards. We're not going to fix it at this time. Let's adjust it in the price point, and we disclose that to the buyer, and then they're comfortable buying that house. And those buyers may go, hey, I can get this house, $10,000 less than, the average, but they can do those repairs on their own time and make those as they want to. And so the buyer feels it's a win. The seller's like, hey, I don't have to deal with it, and it's a win for them. So it's just kind of working that process through. So that's my quick tip for today, is kind of those pre-inspections. If you have more questions on it, give us a holler. If you need resources for home inspectors, give us a holler on that. We have resources of home inspection companies that we use, in that regard. So always happy to help. But I guess let's jump into what the real estate market's done in the last 7 days with our graphics here. So we had 634 new listings go live in the last 7 days. That's basically on par of what we had last week. So we literally had 633 new listings go live last week. We had 338 new contracts written, on par with what we had last week as well. We had 342. So kind of, it's kind of that stagnant, not really stagnant, but there's more homes out there, in the buyer pool as we go through, and the weather turned a little bit nicer. We'll be coming obviously into the more the Thanksgiving and some of those holiday seasons. And then 441 happy new homeowners there. And then let's take a look at the 30,000 foot view. Stop sharing that one, jump on the other one. 30,000 foot view. We got 4,331 homes active in the Omaha and Lincoln MLS. And then we had Douglas, Sarpy County, kind of the Omaha metro area, 2,460. Existing homes out of that 2,400 there is about 1,479. and the new construction is at 981 months of inventory. We're still kind of hovering right around that 3 to 4 month supply of inventory. Our average sold price is at that 360. So these numbers haven't changed too much, but we're seeing more homes come on the market, and then it's still I feel, and talking to other agents around the office and agents on our team, the ones that are priced right in good condition, there's still buyers out there looking for those homes. Now, if you're trying to get the spring prices, on the condition and that sort, it's pricing the home correctly at this time of year is very, very important, because you don't know how long until the snow starts flying. Buyer pool kind of gets a little bit narrowed down, and they're going to put the brakes on. They're going to wait till spring. Good, bad, or indifferent. We can go down that, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent on the buying side. But that's, as a seller, you got to position your house, to make a big splash, and as soon as you can when you get in the pool, and get that, attract those buyers to you, and the buyers are going to know. We know that the buyers are very well educated, and so they know what their money is going to get them if they've been looking at houses and stuff like that. So, but if we're going to buy in houses, we're going to need maybe some little financing side. So let's jump in with Russ. I know the Feds have kind of made some of their announcements the last couple of weeks. So I guess what's that kind of playing on the rate side, or what are you seeing, Russ?
It's interesting. A lot of folks, and this is partially driven by the media's lack of understanding of how it works, but a lot of folks think, oh, the Fed's going to drop rates. That'll mean mortgage rates will drop. Or here's a statistic for you. The last 5 Fed rate cuts have resulted in mortgage rates going up. They don't move the same direction immediately. So if you think the Fed is going to drop your mortgage rate, don't think that way, because that isn't what's happened the last 5 times, and we've talked about it on here many times. Having said that, though, the shutdown, of course, is continuing. Hopefully that ends soon. But without the government releasing data, economic data, the Federal Reserve and other entities are having a hard time knowing exactly what we're looking at for economic growth, for inflation, other sorts of things. And as a result, we're basically trading sideways. Mortgage rates are probably the highest rates they've been the last 3 weeks, and likely will stay there until the government opens back up, or we have significant data that would support that we have a weakening either in the jobs market or that inflation is very tame. And on the inflation front, it's been moving along pretty much sideways here, so we don't see anything there, and we don't know about the jobs piece. So having said that, Mark pointed out, and he's absolutely right, that in the current environment with inventory up, and with rates not knowing where they're going to go, this is a great chance to perhaps find the home that you want and maybe even get some concessions to help you buy the interest rate down. There was a recent study that came out that there is a majority of the US population now that thinks that rates are not going to go down. Whether they do or don't, we don't know that at this point in time. But having said that, buy the house at today's price and get the concessions you want.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the kind of the general consensus I'm seeing, and just the articles I'm reading, podcasts I'm listening to, is that it's going to be right around that 6%, give or take, and so I don't think it's going to drastically go down or drastically go up, and I think we're at where we are, for a little bit, like you said, the numbers haven't come out with a shutdown. And the Fed chair, I believe what he was saying is it's not 100% guaranteed they're going to drop rates again in December, because they don't have that data. And so that kind of spooked the market just a little bit, because like you always say, is the market doesn't like that uncertainty. And then in the press conference, when they come out and say, well, we might not, and so then it's
Yeah.
back and forth in a volatile, it goes up, goes down. And so again, it comes back to the simple point that we've said hundreds of times on these videos, is that, when's the right time to buy a house? It's when you are ready. It's when you have your finances in order, and whatever that rate is at that time, is that good for you? And trying to time the market, time in the market's more important than timing the market. Most people you talk to that bought a house 10 years ago, they're probably not upset about that they bought the house 10 years ago. Now, at the time they pulled the trigger to buy that house, they were like, oh goodness, what's rate are going to do, this or that, but over that longevity, that time frame, if you're planning on having that house for a while, all things being equal, that usually works itself out. And so you're capitalizing on some of that appreciation, and those type of things. So, but yeah. Anything else you got to add for today?
No, we got our first hard freeze coming next week, so make sure that you have your hoses unattached from the spigots.
Yeah, that's what I was talking. My neighbor, we just planted 6 fruit trees, and I was talking to him, the other day. I'm like, do I need to keep obviously watering them, or do I let them kind of go into their fall phase or their dormant phase? He's like, no, with the new. So I'm like, all right, I'll keep watering them so like you said, that freeze comes, and I guess make sure I get to detach the hose from the hydrant out there. So, but yeah, so that's another your end of the video quick tip is make sure you get your sprinklers blown out. You know, and if you don't happen to get your sprinkler blown out or the company can't get there in that time, at least turn off your system, drain the water at least out of your backflow preventer, so that thing doesn't crack on you and things like that. So at least you can drain that. And your sprinkler head should be, I mean, I'm not a sprinkler guy, but the ground temperature is going to be a little bit warmer than obviously the air temp. So you should be okay, at least for a week or two to get somebody out there to blow out your sprinkler head. So